welcome to Aspen, everyone. You'll probably be sick of hearing me by the time you guys hear this episode on Thursday because I'm doing back-to-back episodes today, but this is how I roll. And so my guest this afternoon, depending on when you listen to it, Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, is Spencer. And Spencer is a real estate agent in Southern California, but he just told me something about his personal life, which we'll get into in the interview, and I'll leave it at that because he doesn't talk about this part of his personal life that often. So without further ado, I'm going, Mr. Spencer, take it away.
Thank you very much for having me. How are you?
I am perfectly fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's sunny in the winter, so I can't complain about that.
Oh, we can't complain about that. We can't complain about that. Now, Spencer, how did you get into real estate? I know you told me something before we got on this call, before I hit the record button, that kind of put you on the path to real estate, but did you want to grow up to be a real estate agent, or talk to us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually never wanted to be in real estate. I wanted to be everything but real estate. And so when I grew up around it is why, really. And I realized as I got older, it wasn't the real estate I didn't like. It was the company, the way the company was structured, my parents' company, that I didn't like. And so that kind of, it was a little too mom and pop. And I write about that in my book. It was more, my dad was doing everything. He was the boss. He was the worker. He was the agent. He was everything. And my dad was a developer. My mom was a designer, architectural and interior. So I just grew up around that industry. So really from that, I just knew everything about real estate. It was just natural. So that's kind of how I got into it. It just was part of my upbringing. But I really didn't want to do it. I actually ran out and did fashion instead.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. And my fan base knows this, I'm getting a degree in fashion journalism. I'm running away from education. I'm running away, you guys, from education slowly but surely. And my original degree is in education. And education and Miss Wynn do not mix. And I hate to say it, I love the way I work, but education and me do not mix. I mean, not to say that I don't love the kids, but it's the admins and it's how the schools are structured now. It's exactly what you said about your parents' real estate agents. It's not the company you didn't like, it's how they did. It's not that I don't love education. I think it's how the schools are structured that I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm running away to fashion journalism. But why did you run originally to fashion journalism, then run back to real estate?
So I was, and again, I talk about this in my book, and just to clarify, I'm actually a general contractor, so I build houses. I also sell houses as a managing broker of a brokerage, and then I just wrote a book, Dating Your Investment. So kind of the triple threat, if you think about it, for real estate and investing, really handle all of it. But going back to your question, back in 2009, the market had kind of crashed. Everything was really, really bad.
Yeah.
My parents had their company. My dad was building the Betty Ford Clinic in Palm Springs, the whole Eisenhower campus, doing a big remodel. And so the long story short is he actually fell off the roof of that building, was permanently disabled, and they kind of thrusted me into the real estate world, back into the world of real estate, so to speak. And so what I did, though, was I wasn't really able I think I was somewhere like 19, 20 years old, able to take over that big of a project. I wouldn't know what to do with it. So what I did was I went into real estate from a management standpoint. So I managed vacation rentals in Palm Springs and built a great company out there with one of my mentors, actually. And it was a phenomenal experience. I learned how to work smarter, not harder, and use my brain and leverage the knowledge I had from the past to actually manage properties and make a great amount of money for my client. Well, I was, 20, like I said, 22 by the time maybe, and I was just kind of sick of being second in command. It's just not my personality to be second in command. I really like to be the boss. And people laugh because my uncle says, I'm not a control freak. It's just my way's better. And so it kind of, it's kind of one of those things, So anyway, I got, kind of done with real estate again. I was like, man, I just got to get back out of this industry. It just keeps sucking me in. So I went into fashion, and I created an underwear company for men that's the only underwear in the world that has diamonds in it. It's called Jewels for Your Junk. It's kind of crazy, kind of risque out there, but that company took me all over the world. I got invited to Peru by the Peruvian government, which was really cool. Through that, I acquired some ownership in a brand called Nexi out of Brazil, and so had a brand in Brazil, manufacturing in Guangzhou, China, and then importing to the U.S., so pretty global operation. And I was like 24 at the most when that was happening. And then I realized, we're putting a lot of money into fashion, and the burn rate, the cash burn rate, was about $1 to $3 million, and that was before you even make a profit. You're spending that much money. So I realized, because I was getting married, and my wife, but then fiance, was like, listen, you're traveling the world, having fun, you're hanging out with models, all that stuff, which is great, right? But if it's not paying as much as it could be. And I kind of had this epiphany that, if I put this much money and resources, as well as spent as much time in real estate as I was in fashion, I would have been a millionaire, like, for sure.
Yeah.
So I realized, just as much as I might not like it, I really was called to real estate, if that makes sense. It just so natural. And I saw some things in the marketplace that I could really do. And so I went into managing a fairly large portfolio in Newport Beach. And then kind of the rest is history. From there, I went on to create this little empire.
Yeah. So even though you don't like what you do, it's a stable paycheck. And people laugh at me all the time. Why are you doing, they say, why are you doing from one stable small paycheck to a lucrative career in journalism? And I say this because I love it, and I love it, and I want to do what I love, but at the same time, I like the stable paycheck, but I need to be in creative control. I can't, for me personally, I can't be managed under micromanaged under someone else's. It's my psyche that gets nuts in the classroom, and Yeah. So even
Yeah,
though you,
I would say now, I do want to clarify, now that I'm doing what I'm doing and it's my company that I'm running, I
yeah,
love it. I wouldn't change
yeah.
it. Now that I've figured out my way in that industry, I love what I do.
Ah, see, you have to figure out the way, your own way in the industry. We all beat to a different drum. We all bend to different drummers. And so, that being said, what is your favorite book?
Well, I would kind of say I'm partial to my own book, Dating Your Investments,
That's okay.
because I wrote it.
That's okay.
But
Dating your investments is your favorite
yeah,
book.
but some
That's
other
okay.
good books that are staples would be Think and Grow Rich and then The Power of Positive Thinking. Those are two of the kind of foundational books I would suggest to really any person, but especially anyone wanting to go into any type of entrepreneurship. Those are kind of the quintessential books that I always suggest.
Now, if you had to be educated by anyone inside or outside your field, who would it be and why?
And you said if I had to be entertained by anyone?
Educated.
Educated. That is a good question, actually. I don't know that I've ever got that one. You know, there's a lot of great real estate entrepreneurs that have been around. Steve Wynn, I believe, is a good one. Just to kind of be a fly on the wall for some of these meetings with, how Lee Iacocca turned around Chrysler and Andrew Carnegie I think he was in the steel or iron business. Like these old school guys that really made money and changed entire industries, kind of the way the world does what they do now from these guys. And so that would be, I would say, something I definitely would want to learn from the past history of the greats versus, there's now a ton of new people that have come onto the scene. Grant Cardone, Bradley. I have a personal mentorship with Tim Story. There's a lot of really good guys out there right now, but that's something that's kind of tangible, I guess. But what I really would like to study is the one business people that really made the foundation of this country.
And so you want to study the foundations of this country, which I think is something we all want to do.
Yeah, I think that the entrepreneurs specifically of the country that started it.
Now, how long did it take you to write dating your investments? And did you traditionally publish or self-publish, or explain to us how long it took you and why you wanted to do that and what publishing route you chose?
So I was actually going, believe it or not, this sounds maybe crazy, but in Denver, Colorado, there's a restaurant called Elway's. It's in the ground floor of Ritz-Carlton, and I'm not getting paid to say that, by the way. But seriously, I wanted to go have dinner there with one of my buddies who was in town, and so we went to dinner in that restaurant, had reservations, and while I was on the plane flying there, I had this idea. And it was kind of like a correlation of, if you really think about a transaction with investing, it's an experience, right? It's not just a one time let's invest. It's a process. So really deconstructing how investing works, right? I think when you understand something in its entirety, you can simplify it. And I think you would agree with me on that. So I took investing and simplified it to really something that's just as equally complex, but we can all understand, which is dating. And dating, a lot of people relate to as the romantic relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, floats their boat. But really what dating truly, I think, is, and you can look this up because it's now been published in the dictionary, is dating is the process of exploration. And so that's kind of the concept and the premise of how I started this book. And that's really what I started to write down. I carry a little black book with me and my nice pen. And I wrote down dating, your investments, the process of exploration. And from that point on, I don't think I stopped writing for 4 hours until I landed. I filled up a whole black little moleskin kind of notebook and then wrote through the whole weekend. And so I literally wrote this book in a weekend just from a thought, a single thought, and then that took action, which truly is like investing. You realize you have the point of inception of, wow, I really like the idea of investing. Anybody can have the idea, but you have to take action, right? And so that's what I did. And then through that, I was in a conference in Hawaii just, I think, a week later and I got introduced to a publisher, and I wasn't one to necessarily self-promote, but they introduced me and said, hey, tell them about that book idea. I said, no, they'll never like it.
Oh, boy.
And I was like really hesitant, because I'm not a great writer. Quite frankly, if you ask some of my language arts teachers, they probably would say he is the worst writer, and I never expected him to write a book, right? I'm the least of them.
Yeah.
So, to make the long story short, I gave him a copy of the book. Of course, he signed an NDA because I'm a businessman. And I got a call the next morning and said, hey, I want your book. And, I mean, that's really what happened. So I went through traditional publishing, great publisher, Emerge Publishing, they're out of Tulsa. And so that's kind of the process. A lot of people, I would say, come up to me and they really are like, how did you do it? And literally what I tell them is, I just did it. Like, I think a lot of people really put themselves in boxes, and they also don't really, they're almost scared to use their potential because what if they fail? That was, and I'm going to go back into one of our questions that I think you're going to get to later, but what is kind of your biggest and deepest regret? Which is, I think everybody kind of has that same regret, is what if I don't do it, but then what if I do it and it works or it doesn't work, right? So it's the fear of failure, and I want to always live without any regret, right? And even if I fail, I still want to try it because at least I can say I tried it. And that would really be my deepest regret, is not trying, right?
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. What is your biggest failure and what is your deepest regret?
What was the first question? What was my deepest
what? What is your biggest entrepreneur failure in all this?
My barrier is probably not thinking big enough. I never imagined to have, a book that has created such a publicity uproar as this one has. I mean, they call me the bad boy of finance because I'm very untraditional, and I like to think of myself as blowing the lid off of all the other technicality. I wrote a dictionary. In the back of my book, there's a dictionary.
Oh, yes, you did.
It simplifies everything. There's a story I tell in the book that you'll have to get the book to read it. I think we're going to run out of time if I tell it. But I didn't want to have my audience have the same struggles I had, which is I had to go learn this stuff and really study hard, things like capitalization rates, which are also cap rates. And people don't even know those are the two in the same thing necessarily. And what they do and how they work, and they change dependent on the deal structure, which I'm getting into showing my nerdy side. But I wanted to simplify it and talk like I'm talking to somebody. People can feel like, hey, Uncle Spencer, I understand it now. So that would be
exactly.
something I didn't expect, and I had to restructure my whole organization to be able to accommodate having such a big audience, right? And so that would be my biggest thing. Is I was thinking almost too small. As crazy as it sounds, 2 companies and I'm under 30, I was still thinking too small, which is crazy, but it's the truth. And I think people really don't, and it goes back to the regrets. You can't live with regrets, so you got to dream big.
Yeah. And now, Spencer, I know you have a couple questions to ask me as we close out this interview, but before you ask me my questions, I want to know where people can find you and where people can find dating your investments, which I think is also an amazing title and so cool.
Thank you very much. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. You can find it on my website, spencerchambers.com, datingyourinvestments.com, anywhere you would buy one of your favorite books, which hopefully this one will be one of them.
Yes, hopefully, you guys. And it's probably on Kindle, you guys, knowing...
Oh, yeah. I think it's running a
publisher.
special right now for free on Kindle, a free download.
So more incentive for you to go get it. Dating your investments. And of course, we'll have Spencer's information in the show notes. Now, Spencer, you have a couple of questions for me, and then we'll close out this interview.
Yeah, so I would ask you, what's your biggest life lesson you could give us as going in and dealing with the different things you've had to deal with and being in journalism and also teaching?
Well, my biggest life lesson right now is go for your passion at the earlier ages, like in your 20s, not in your 30s, like I'm doing. Thank you very much. And go for your passions in your 20s. So that is my biggest life lesson.
And what's the biggest hurdle you've had to come over to get to where you're at right now?
Oh, the biggest life hurdle I've had to come over is I'm actually in the process of stepping away from the self-publishing industry and working my way into the traditionally published industry, which that is a whole different kettle of fish. My God, I'm so used to self-publishing the books that it's a whole different kettle of fish. So that's a huge obstacle that I'm coming over right now. And also acquiring my journalism degree. That's another huge obstacle that I'm overcoming. So those are 2 real-life examples that I'm actually going through right now as we record this interview.
That's awesome. So what you were talking about the traditional way of publishing. What have you seen the differences between self-published and traditional published? Because I myself haven't done self-published, and I'm not as familiar as the other side like you would be.
Well, one traditional publishers are very, very picky.
Very
Believe it or not.
Very picky.
Very picky. And Spencer can say that again. I mean, picky, believe it or not. I
understand. It's crazy that I got it in one day. I agree.
They're very picky, and my editor, who will eventually get onto a publisher, says, she says to me this morning, do you have a 240-page book? Like, where am I supposed to get that? I said, I will have a 240-page book, but she's automatically assuming that I already have a 240-page book, which I will, but not now. And
you're going to need about 400 to start, and then it'll get whittled down to 240.
Yeah. Or they want what they want, and so I find it. Well, I shouldn't say funny, but I find it hilarious how picky they are. How picky they are. And we haven't even got to the agent stage yet. But my editor is picky. But that's a good thing. I need a picky editor. I need someone that will keep me honest and keep me on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's your favorite book? I'm going to ask you the same question.
My favorite book, the last good book I read, which you guys are going to think this is the last, it's The Secret Life of Bees. That is my ultimate favorite book, and it's set in a south, and that is my ultimate favorite book. And if someone would give me a subscription to Audible.com, I would be happy to claim, because I like good audiobooks. But that one, The Secret Life of Bees, is an excellent book, and that one is still in print, and that one is tremendous. So they're my favorite book, The Secret Life of Bees.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the interview. I really do.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and just sharing everything. And, of course, you guys now need to go pick up dating your investments, and Spencer should probably do something on Bitcoin by now, because Bitcoin is...
I have a funny story on Bitcoin, but I'll leave that for the next interview.
Yeah, well, you leave that for the next interview. Bitcoin is the next best thing. Trust me, you guys, I haven't invested in Bitcoin myself. I won't let myself go there. But, yeah, Spencer needs to write a book on investing in Bitcoin appropriately. Geez, the amount of people that are investing in Bitcoin is unbelievable. So talk about dating Bitcoin. We can do another podcast interview all about itself. So anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed another fabulous interview with Spencer. Go pick up Dating Your Investments, please, because even though I will be a traditionally published author soon, I still believe in my independent author. I will never get out of that role. So please, 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 please go support Spencer and his book, even though his book is traditionally published. Every little bit helps with a independently published or traditionally published. So please go pick up Dating Your Investments, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous interview. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.